So let's get started. We've got 25 to 30 minutes. I want to create a picture for you. Imagine this, that from the very day one, as in this being your day one, you know exactly what your body requires to be well. The reason why you're here tonight, because all of you are proactive with your health, which is fantastic. You're thinking about thinking well, moving well, eating well. Your choices have made changes over the years. Some of you have been practice members here for the last 10 or 15 years. Some of you over the last few months. You're all making better choices. The purpose of this masterclass tonight is to embed in even better choices. But imagine this. Imagine if you could find out exactly what is right for your cellular makeup. The reason why this is important, because some of you may share a dinner table with a family member. You eat the same food. That food may be making you sick, but making your partner well. How does that work? It's the same carrot. It's the same omega-3. It's the same fish. It's the same vegetable. But the point is, your DNA needs certain things. When I had my DNA tested some years ago, I learned about myself, and it was a real revelation for me. So I thought, I want to do this for my kids. And I found out my kids were more like me than their mum. So tonight, I'm going to have Katarina share with you some really pertinent things, because some of you had a DNA test done before and you've probably still got those results. And if you don't know where they are, ask us, because we can still get those downloaded from the app. And I want you to get those out and review those over the next few days, because you might have just forgotten some of the things you're meant to do for your cellular makeup. So I'm not going to take Katarina's time anymore. We're going to get ourselves straight into the masterclass, and I'll come back. I've got to pop out and take some x-rays, and I'll come back in about 15, 20 minutes. And we'll be able to close up the masterclass. So, Katarina, thank you for your time. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Christian, and welcome to tonight's masterclass on DNA. I'm just going to share a screen, so hopefully that should be straightforward, and then we'll just jump in straight onto the presentation. Can you just make sure that everybody can see that? Hopefully, yes, you can. If you just do a thumbs up, fantastic. So, welcome again, and we're going to be talking about DNA. And why do we talk about DNA? I mean, if you think about it, every single human being, every single living, whether it's an animal or a living plant or anything else, we all have a DNA. We all have a blueprint by which we are actually created, by which we actually utilize our body for various functionalities, but also we use the DNA to use it for our children. If you think about it, we replicate and we pass our genes and pass our information of our blueprint to our offsprings, and so it goes, yeah, generations after generations. So DNA in itself is very much the starting point of creation of something. And imagine you would hold the key to that. You would hold the understanding of how this works. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing to know if you can use the key for unlocking lots of good things and utilizing it for things that we know we're born with, but we can do something about? So we're talking about DNA because everything on the planet that is living will have some structure. Even things like viruses and bacteria have a DNA. That's how you can unlock the foundations of what it makes them tick, how they operate. Even COVID was actually unlocked based on its DNA. So they wanted to know how that organism operates to be able to respond to this. And the same way we can use it for our health and for our benefit. So imagine a current climate. Lots of people that you may know, you come across, even family members, may have some sort of health concern. Yeah, they might be worried about something, whether it's an acute symptom or even a chronic symptom. And guess what? A lot of us would go to the GP and go, actually, there is a problem. So in many times, doctors will come and say, actually, we'll do a test, we'll check on everything. And they realize that there is a generic approach to something. And imagine that you would use your DNA for very much of a personalized approach to healthcare. So in the past 10 years or so, we've seen a huge surge in more individual approach to health. And this is really very much unlocked from the basis that we now understand a lot more about our DNA. And this is our way of unlocking that potential for every individual there is. This personalized approach is going to go way forward for our health to get better. And how can we do that? Well, instead of just being reactive to something, we can be proactive. And we can be proactive because we now understand how our body ticks, how our body can recuperate from illness, how we can actually start getting better and maintain being better, and even go as far as being at optimal health. Because if we have this blueprint, we can fine-tune our choices, whether they are dietary, lifestyle, or any other, in making sure that DNA is being utilized to the best advantage. So imagine you holding that power in your hands by understanding how your body works. Isn't that amazing? If you take a car to, say, to a garage, what they do, they plug it in. They plug it in into a specific electronic system, into the computer, and that tells them what's going on inside the car, and it tells them what's wrong with the car as well. So if you need to service it, you know straight away what's going on. So imagine you can utilize that for health. What if we can unlock certain information that we can then use in making sure that your health is at optimal level forever, for the rest of your life? Because DNA is something that we use as a standard blueprint for working the best way forward. So every step will make a difference. Yeah? So what we're looking for is understanding how we can use it. So what we want to do, we don't want to react to a disease. Instead, we want to be proactive with it. So our DNA is unlocking a potential for us being proactive with our health. Rather than waiting for something to develop or something to go wrong, we can use our DNA and our blueprint for understanding how we can get the most out of what we have and also what we pass to our next generations. So if we know that, we can make appropriate choices, whether they're dietary or lifestyle. So really, that DNA is a great toolbox that you can have to understand how your body ticks. And we are a lot more proactive in every angle of day-to-day life as well. So what is DNA actually? Well, DNA, we are really made out of something called the chromosomes. They come in 23 pairs, and they are very much of a double helix. They contain a double strand of DNA in each of these chromosomes. And each of these particles will come 50% from your father and 50% from your mother, making you who you are. Now, there are certain things that will come from each of your parents and imagine from their parents. So actually, you're a big part of your previous generations. And this is what makes you very, very unique, because every person will have a different DNA structure. Now, overall, humans will share around 90% of similarities in terms of DNA, because we are still the same structure. We've got a skeleton, we have got a brain, we've got a nervous system. Certain things are the same amongst humans. However, that last 9.99% will be very different to each of us. Yeah. So if you think about it, each of us have a different color of eyes, different structure of hair, different tones of the skin. Lots of things are very, very different. And lots of biochemical reactions will also be very, very different. But what it also tells us that if your parents are experiencing any health concerns, there are more chances or more predisposition, as we call it, for you to inherit the 50% chances of each parent to do that. Yeah. So what we want to know is, what is it that you've inherited? Yeah. And what is the best what we can do with what we have? Now, there is a lot of positive things that people inherit, not just negative things. There is a lot of things such as, fast metabolism. So you might know people that are, very lucky, where they eat a lot, never put on weight, or they're extremely good at sport, or they're very, very fast at something, or they're great thinkers, or they've got a certain way about them, certain energy levels. That can be easily inherited from parents, but it's a great way to understand who inherits what, and also what you pass on as a 50% to your children as well. So it's a great toolbox to have. Now, how can we influence our letters? How can we influence our genes? Now, if you think about it, genes defines you who you are. So can we influence something that defines us? The answer is yes. Yeah. You could almost compare it that we hold a loaded gun. We hold a loaded gun because the environment we bathe ourselves in is going to influence and trigger certain things in our body. So DNA, when we're born with the DNA, is a certain way of setup, certain manual. but these are very much influenced by the environment that we're in. So certain environmental factors, certain lifestyle factors, certain dietary factors can influence and trigger changes in the genes. So it's almost like having a loaded gun, which I mentioned just a minute ago. And it's all about, are we triggering that gun? And we have the power to trigger or not trigger the gun. Now, what I might be talking about lifestyle factors. So for example, smoking. Yeah, it's a choice. It's a lifestyle factor that people might consider. And it is something that isn't natural for the body. Yeah, so that is one of the lifestyle factors we may influence our genes with, for example. Yeah, or having quite a lot of sugar, for example, or having a caffeine or having an alcohol. These are the choices that we make. And depending on the choices we make, we can influence our genes' expression, the way the genes are behaving in our body, whether they're behaving in a good way or whether they're misbehaving. So we want to make sure that we utilize our lifestyle choices and dietary choices for more positive effect in the body rather than negative. So what do we want to do? We want to influence our alphabet in the best possible way. And there are ways that we can do it from day to day. And we can also do it in very small ways, introducing new habits, whether it's just drinking more water, whether it's sleeping better, whether it's being outside, whether it's just eating more greens in your diet, whether you're putting more fish on the plate. These are small but subtle things that you can actually influence your alphabet with. Because what we want to make sure is that our alphabet is good and it replicates to our next generations in a good way as well. So when we're creating our alphabet and our sentences, really, which is who we are, and we are our blueprint, we want to also make sure that we don't jeopardize our potential of utilizing it to the best advantage. So if you're thinking of, well, what can I do in day-to-day life? You might be thinking about simple choices like what I've just mentioned. Yeah. Movement is another one. Movement enhances the replication, enhances the new cell production, and actually gets the cells moving, gets that energy moving, and you can influence the alphabets and letters in your genes as well. Now, there is a big difference between the genes that might be influencing your being fit and you being fat. Now, we don't want to, of course, nobody wants to be fat. Everybody wants to be fit. It's quite normal. But what we're looking for is influencing the genes, for example, that enhance our metabolism, enhance our sort of utilization of energy, utilization of food that we use for making energy. So if we make better choices, we can make sure that we stay fitter rather than the other one. Yeah, so what we can do is influence it by diet, by exercise, by making sure we make different choices every single day that cumulatively work towards improving our genes. Now, certain people might be born with certain changes to our genes, and this is what we call predispositions. Now, there are almost what we call the SNPs or changes to specific letters or specific words in our DNA alphabet. Now, these are the ones that you might see in patients with, or anybody with, for example, if somebody in your family might have a high cholesterol, or if somebody in your family might have a high blood pressure, it is more likely, of course, that there is more chances that 50% that might be inherited. But this is what you want to know, because if you know about it, you can make some positive lifestyle changes to enhance some positive aspects within your DNA rather than worrying about what can happen later on in life. And this is a great tool that you have because you can make that changes very, very quickly and influence your genes very positively going forward as well. Think of all the nutrient deficiencies that can actually contribute to some of the changes in the genes. This is very important because what we try to do is making sure that we check, we test, and we identify any potential nutrient deficiencies because those can potentially contribute to changes within DNA. So we want to make sure we pick them up, making sure we address it, making sure we boost them up through your diet and making choices that are beneficial to positive effect on your genes as well. So how can we do the DNA testing? It's a very easy, non-invasive swab. Literally, it's a saliva testing. So you literally just coat your cheeks with your saliva and we send it off to a specialist laboratory where they analyze that saliva for all the information that we require regarding the DNA. So it's non-invasive, it's very easy and very, very straightforward. And what do you get? What's the information that the DNA tells us? There's a lot of it. There is a lots and lots of information you're going to get from that. But imagine you would know what you should eat. Imagine the DNA will tell you what is your optimal fuel level. So if you're a Ferrari car, you would want to know whether you're going to fuel with a diesel or a fuel. Imagine you would know that from your DNA. DNA can also tell you whether you're more at risk of being sensitive to foods and what type of foods you might predominantly be sensitive to. Whether you can or cannot digest alcohol, whether you can and can't digest caffeine, for example, which can have longer-term lingering effect on your body and DNA. Imagine you would know what sort of supplementation you require in moderate or high levels to others, because that would make it very easy for us to then respond in a more personalized and individual approach to give you the right supplementation that you require. Imagine you would know the optimal training type. So if you're trying to lose weight or keep healthy or just being really fit, imagine you would know which type of exercises are best for you. It's great to know. If you know that you need to jump through the hoops or you need to run a marathon or you're just doing basic exercises, it may have a great response rate for your muscle, for energy, for weight loss. And there is more information regarding bone mineral density. This is a brand new that they've increased this information within the DNA report to understand how your bones are. Are your bones more prone to porousness? Are they strong? Are they going to be strong going forward? Is there more chances that they break later on in life? Because again, we can address it. We can support that. We can also understand what is your predisposition to controlling sugar in your body. How can we create the energy? Are we efficient at it? Or do we require more help and support? What if you knew how you will respond to stress, how your body responds to stress and how resilient you are to stress? That would be a great understanding to know, because then we can understand what we need to do to support you during the difficult times. All of this is a really useful tools and very much needed for day-to-day balancing and energy effects on the body as well. So there is a lot that you will learn through these reports as well. So it's not just about the code, not just about the DNA. It's more about the lifestyle and dietary choices you can make to make yourself even healthier, even better at your health than you are now. Now, the other things that the report greatly shows is perhaps sensitivities to things like salt, acidity, lactose, gluten, anything like that. So it's a really good, thorough understanding on certain things that might be more inflammatory in the body, that might be more responsive in the body, which gives you, again, more of a tool to understand which direction we need to support you, how we can get the best out of your plan and out of your DNA test. Not to mention, you get a lot more information about your fitness, so how your body recovers. Are the massages that you're utilizing are working really in the deep end of the DNA to give you the best ammunition to recover? You know, I know many of you are coming for adjustments, and this is really crucial to understand how you're going to recover. How is that process going to be? What's the length of the process you need to go through, and how quickly your body recovers? So this is a great tool for if you're working with Dr. Christian and lots of adjustments, having a massage is because it works alongside it as well. And then we also understand what we need to do with regards to strengthening other parts of the body, not just the bones, but remember the muscle, the nervous system, everything that surrounds that, to make sure that your body's strong, it's in alignment, and it works in reducing the negative effects of anything like subluxation and any effects on the central nervous system as well. Would you say that, Dr. Christian, would you say that that works extremely well with other assessments that we do within BodyWell?
Well, I think what's really important, Katerina, did you get to touch on where this all came about, where the DNA test came from or not? Because it kind of builds into why we do it. Do we talk about it all came from doing this on athletes, because athletes were getting injuries and they go, why is this guy who's a sprinter, why is he getting all these injuries? But if we change his way he trains, he's less likely to get injured. And they go, wait, his tissue composition is different, how his makeup. So this is where all this sort of stuff started from. And what's quite amazing, and the reason why you won't get this through your general practice at the moment, because imagine if they did a DNA test and they said, that drug isn't good for you. Drugs will never be tailored because it's too much hard work. Has anyone seen Dr. Christian on Embarrassing Bodies? He's the guy who wears the big blonde hair back and he wears coloured shirts. We get the same shirts. And has anyone seen that show, Embarrassing Bodies, before? It's where they wear gloves and, do all these things on people. Well, it was a BBC show some years ago. But anyway, the point was he went and saw someone because he did some tests and he was taking some blood thinners because he's got a blood clot disorder. And he went and got this DNA test. And the DNA test that he had, which is really, really super expensive, but it was about to check out what drugs are best for his blood clotting disorder. And out of like 50 or 60 drugs that are available, only 2 of them would have been beneficial for him. The ones he was taking was going to give him more chances of side effects of developing other chronic illnesses in his body. Now, here's the problem. Who's made available that sort of test to find out what medication is right for you? Because I know some of you have to take stuff. And some of you got off a lot of your medication. But herein lies the reason why we do DNA tests for you here is because we want to see how your environment affects your body. And what I mean by that is, like Katerina talked about, how you respond to stress, how you respond to the food you're having, how you respond to the physical loads in terms of how your bones are responsive to that. So what we wanted to do is take the guesswork out. And the reason why you're at this masterclass today is because you're ready for that. If you haven't had that test, just ask us. If you go get these tests, they're like 500-600 quid. We bulk buy them, so like 100, I think they're about a couple hundred quid, but they're one test you get once in your life, and that will guide you in terms of this is what I must eat, this is what I mustn't eat. So for me personally, my journey, and this is why we do it for all you at BodyWell, is I am sensitive to caffeine, I'm sensitive to alcohol. And that's the reason why you don't see me drinking or hear about me drink alcohol. Well, I didn't drink much before anyway, but if I have a glass of wine, I'm the first person to get drowsy and fall asleep. If I have caffeine, it'll go straight through me. My digestive tract will tell me I've had caffeine. What else? It says I'm predisposed to soft tissue injuries. Remember, Mr. Perfect, right? Not at all. Manual worker, am predisposed to soft tissue injuries. So I need to make sure I increase my antioxidants and other things that Katerina got me to have to support myself so I'm not going to injure myself, because I can't work. I can't do what I love doing if I injure myself. So the DNA test was fundamental for me. And I did that, I think, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now. And what's happened, those DNA tests have really evolved where they didn't do the bone mineralization. They didn't do all those other things, the stress responses and how responsive we are to stress. But you get access to all that one test, simply a saliva test. The common question people ask me is how safe and how secure is that information? It's all data protected. It is protected. They're not after learning about your family history. They just want to know what's your DNA in terms of how that's going to affect your well-being. So the beautiful thing about this masterclass, as Katerina's encapsulated, is that our environment affects our genes. That's what we call epigenetics. Have we talked about that tonight, epigenetics or not? Yeah. So epigenetics, right? This means you have influence on triggering those genes, turning them on or turning them off. No more do you have to live in fear of getting cancer, heart disease, and all these things like diabetes, when we know actually you can just stick to a plan that's congruent with your genes. So I'm going to open up the floor for a few minutes. You can ask questions while Katerina is free, but I'm really excited about this sort of technology because we have this available to us. Take advantage of it because it will just make it really specific about what you can do to help yourself. So, Katerina, okay, so questions. You got the screen. Any questions? Anyone? Just put your hand up, type the question in. If you want to ask a question, don't be shy. Let's have a look here. Who's there? That's okay. Katerina, do you want to add to that while people probably have to think about it? Don't be shy, guys. There's no wrong questions, no silly questions in this environment, so don't be shy. Any questions for me? Yes, Elspeth.
So if you have the test done and the information comes back, would you be available to go through that and explain it? Because if I got a load of test results, I probably wouldn't even understand a word that was written. So I would want to sit down with someone and talk about it.
Do you know what? It's like I planted you for that question, because when I got my DNA report, it was that thick, right? And whilst I like reading, I'm a bit of an action person. I just want to know what I need to do. And then I can pace myself and read the stuff later. So the answer is Katerina will have a summary sheet. She will sit down and read through your report for you. and then she'll create a summary sheet and sit with you and review exactly what you need to do from that point on. So the answer is yes. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Great question. And I would also suggest for those that have had report done is to dig them out and actually bring them back to the practice, and we can refresh that on you, because actually this is a fantastic time post pandemic to actually look at your genes and strengthen your genes and strengthen, your health.
Yeah. And I think, do I like talking about that stuff? Not really. But the thing is, moving forward, we know that this is going to happen again. This is the cycle that's happening. So all I want to do is I want to build greater resilience for you, because if your cell and your DNA and everything in your constituency is strong, you can cope with just about everything. Just look what happens to the weak, the frail. And it's not age-based. This is about how strong and resilient you are to get through viruses, to get through demands, to get through recessions. Let's not think about the fearful stuff coming. Let's do what we have in our control, and that is making sure that we make better decisions about what food we have, how we exercise, how we sleep, all those sort of things. And you'll know that through that DNA test. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Anything else you want to add to that, Katarina, at all?
Yeah, I can just add to what you just said, actually, Dr. Christian. It's very important, because years ago, even sort of a couple of 100 years ago, originally we thought it was a germ theory. Did you remember the sort of, you may have read about Pasteur, and it was all about germ theory. But actually, the years after that, they came out that it wasn't the germ theory that was the best one at the time, because antibiotics are not longer working on things. But they found out it was the Bouchon who understood that it was all about our bodies, how our bodies are resilient to external environment. So Dr. Christian rightly said it's about terrain, how we can strengthen our own terrain to make us resilient against anything outside. And this is why we're trying to do the DNA, is because we want to understand how we strengthen your terrain.
Yeah. So those who are on the masterclass, we've made this available to you. People would normally, for 400 or 500 quid. This is a couple hundred quid, and we did it because we buy them in bulk. If you want to do it, just let us know. Drop me an email. I'll send you a message later, and just say, yeah, that's great. And when you come in, those who are not members who come into the practice regularly, just drop us an email. You can pop in. It's just literally a 5-minute test. We'll put it all together. We'll send it off to the lab. We get the results back within a few weeks, and then we'll make a time where Katarina can literally read through all it and then give you a summary sheet and say, right, from this downward, this is what we need to now start to think about doing. And then you can then make some action steps about that. All right. So listen, if there's no other questions, writing right on time, respectful at 6:30, you all need to eat dinner. And if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask through publicly tonight, that's fine. Just literally drop me an email and I'll make sure I get back to you in the next 24 hours. So thank you again for being here this evening. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, because in a couple of weeks, we have a guest speaker, Dr. Nick. He is a manufacturer and the founder of a CBD. CBD is cannabis oil, and a lot of people think, woo, cannabis. Let me give you a little insight to that. It's quite remarkable, actually. The reason why cannabis has been poo-pooed by a lot of media is because what happens, it hasn't been patented. And that means the drug companies can't patent that. Cannabis oil has been shown to be hugely therapeutic for all sorts of things. Do I have that? I wear patches every now and then, and actually what makes a big difference, it helps me sleep deeply. But for everyone else, it has different benefits. But the point is, you're going to learn about that. He's going to come in and talk to you about what cannabis oil is all about, what ones you can get, what the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things. And actually, if that interests you, you can just ask how to source that. So that'll be in 2 weeks' time on the 26th of May, 6 o'clock, same time, same place. So until I see you next, I'll see you soon. All right. God bless.